Scientific studies about plants began less than 100 years ago. In the 1920s, Indian botanist Jagadish Chandra Bose tried to show that plants not only had sensations, but some kind of consciousness.
After 5 decades of obscurity, the legacy of Jagadish Chandra Bose is now revived in San Diego, California.
Welcome to the Baxter School of Lie Detection. I'm Cleve Baxter, and during the next 6 weeks here in San Diego, you're going to be involved in a very intensified instructional course in the use of the polygraph, or so-called lie detector.
Baxter hopes to show that plants react to any termination of life in their immediate environment.
This particular morning, I'd been working all night in the laboratory and had decided to water a plant in the lab, very similar to the plant here, Dracaena cane plant. But then it occurred to me, just about 14 minutes along, what would be the real optimum threat to the well-being of a plant. In fact, the imagery of fire entered my mind, and I not only thought, but I fully intended to burn the very leaf that was being tested with a match. The interesting thing is that right at the split second that imagery of fire entered my mind, the tracing reflecting the changes in the plant just went right off the top of the page. And the only thing that occurred at that time, no lighting of a match, nothing else, merely the imagery of fire. And I must say that as of 14 minutes along in that initial observation on the morning of February 2nd, 1966, my life just hasn't been the same.
Only a few daring individuals from the scientific establishment have come forward with offers to replicate his experiments or test his results. The great majority are content simply to condemn his efforts without taking the trouble to investigate their validity. Randy Fonts, a researcher in parapsychology, proposes an experiment inspired by Cleve Baxter's initial experience.
Would this constitute a tight, sound scientific experiment?
Dr. Norman Goldstein, a professor of biology and expert in the new science of electrophysiology, agrees to review the results of the experiment, which will determine whether the plant Mimosa pudica actually responds to human emotions.
As you can see, we have a normal copper screen and such as that Faraday cage, block out electromagnetic signals, radiations. But in addition to that, we have a plexiglass over here that blocks the wind movements and ion movements and air flows that would, shake the plant, cause abnormal signals. We also have a motion detector in here, which will allow us to look and see whether any external motions or movements have interfered with the experiment, so we can tell when the plant is actually vibrating.
Where's the subject with respect to the cage now?
We're going to seat him, within a few feet of the cage, probably about 5 feet. And he'll be viewing a screen, he'll be watching a stimulus movie that we're providing. Mm-hmm. And then his emotional responses should carry over into the cage here and affect the plant. Got that one. He's doing real well with that image.
That looks very convincing. I have to think about that one.
In the belief that a tangible expression of plant emotions would bring about a harmonious interaction between human beings and the plant kingdom, artist John Lifton devised what he calls green music, an ephemeral exchange of energy linking two diverse life forms becomes a symphony of emotions.
Managing Director and Chief of Research for the Fuji Electronic Industries, has constructed special instruments which translate the electrical output of plants into modulated sounds, giving voice to a cactus. Relying on her affinity for plants, Mrs. Hashimoto looks forward to actual conversation with her cactus. Convinced that it possesses an intelligence, she is determined to teach it the Japanese alphabet.
In a more advanced experiment, technicians were asked to pass through a laboratory containing 2 living cabbage plants. One of the subjects has been instructed to destroy the plant which is not attached to the electronic instruments. Hours later, the technicians are asked to return to the scene of the crime. The evidence is clear. The remaining plant has correctly identified the assailant.
Her patient today is a houseplant. The slightest touch makes its leaves spring shut. She's giving it a drink of ether, an early knockout drug used in humans. After an hour, it's time to test the result. There's not a flicker of movement. The mimosa seems to be out cold. In humans, ether works to stop nerve cells from transmitting signals. But a plant has no nerves, so why does the ether work?
It's quite easy to say that thanks to evolution, the living systems become more and more clever or more and more intelligent, while intelligence could be defined in various ways.